All right, we weren't going to go live on the draft till Monday, but then the Niners went and drafted Jake Moody in the 3rd round, and Middlecoff was like, "We got to talk." And I had already just put up a Jake Moody short, I think. So this Jake Moody news, John. I would say Will Levis, Jake Moody, biggest stories of the NFL draft so far.
Well, I remember you talking about him. Obviously, the Robbie Gould when he, made his declaration like, "I'm moving on." He's not. He's unemployed. That it was clear, like, the Niners were either going to have to draft a kicker or get him back on the cheap. Something was going to have to give.
Right. They got the guy from the Panthers for, whatever.
Exactly. Zane Gonzalez for nothing. But I got news for Zane Gonzalez. Bad day for him, for his likelihood. And immediately I just start texting. When most picks happen, and you and I consume more college football, I would say, than 98% of people that live outside the Southern Eastern Conference surroundings. And the players start getting drafted, I would say, past like pick 75. Like, I mean, that happens in the 1st and 2nd round, but every single player is like, what? When this happened, obviously I knew who it was. Rich Eisen, I was watching NFL Network, goes nuts, right? He's fired up. Texts around.
Same, I saw this thing.
And everyone that I immediately text is like, listen, we don't have to in our scouting department watch this guy. Obviously, we go through Michigan. He's an elite player. But it's like the running back thing. Like, you don't draft a running back in the 1st round. You and I have talked about it. Like, do you draft a kicker before, like, the 5th or 6th round? Like, that's the argument. It's not that this guy, people aren't like, this guy can't make a kick. I mean, he's the most heralded, as Rich Eisen was fucking fired up, kicker in the history of the program that I think's been going on for 200 years playing football, right? Honestly, I think Michigan, like golf in Ireland, like Michigan started football.
Right. Yeah, or like Yale did, but they don't quite,
But Yale like played Michigan like the 2nd year
in the championship game and beat them. So we did a video back beginning of March about the available kickers. You and I both have a buddy who's special teams coach, was in the SEC. He said Moody was the best guy. So positional value, let's start with that, and then we'll talk about the guy, because Twitter and my text messages are just like the scouts and the people around the league that you talk to. 3rd round got everybody's attention. Remember, Kyle got everybody's attention the last time he drafted a special teamer when he drafted Mitch Wishnowsky in the 4th round, and that got a lot of attention, right? I would say this guy's got to be better at what he does than Mitch is at what he does to justify this pick, in part because you are replacing a perfect kicker, a perfect postseason kicker.
If I was to defend Mitch, and you and I it feels weird because when we watch him, we're like, is this guy good? He did get a contract extension.
Yeah,
right?
It worked. But this is the 3rd round.
They are also replacing a guy who's never missed a postseason kick, and they've played in a ton of postseason games the last 3 out of the last 4 years, right? I mean, their seasons have ended in the postseason. They lost in the Super Bowl, conference championship, so they've played in 6. They played in 9 postseason games, and their kickers never missed a kick. Now we can talk about his
not
flaws.
To mention they've played in some big divisional games
for sure, and he's hit kicks in those. He's hit game-winning kicks. He's a very clutch kicker with a lot of experience, but it does feel like, and this is where I would defend, just we're not paying this guy $5 million and we're moving on despite he makes us feel okay. He's like a modern golfer in 2023 that hits 250-yard drives. Like, it's not sustainable to keep him. Like, he doesn't do kickoffs. I guess he has been pretty accurate for longer field goals, which I would say is pretty important. So it's like, he doesn't do kickoffs, but in a weird way, in a big spot.
Well, he does kickoffs. He just doesn't get touchbacks.
Well, yeah, but wouldn't you say
in the league in touchbacks? The Niners can't cover. They tried to change special teams coaches. They still can't cover. So they solved one of their big problems with Jake Moody, who was one of the best kickoff kickers. Forget about field goals. He was one of the best kickoff guys in college football.
I'll say this, though, about Robbie. Like 48 yards, 51 yards, like in a big spot, he makes them, and I'll never forget my 2nd year in the NFL. We drafted, not Derrick Henry, something Henry, Jake or something.
Jake, right?
Jake, I think. Yeah. And you know what? Who we let go? David Akers, who went to San Francisco and had the best year of his career and was an all-pro. And in that training camp, and I was just a random guy. It's not like I'm the GM or the coach. And I remember standing by those guys, and everyone was like, this is a disaster. And then as you and I started working in it, more and more like the Aguayo situation, nothing gets covered like a highly drafted kicker, especially when you're replacing a very reliable veteran, famous. Robbie Gould's famous. I mean, he plays in the fucking golf tournament with Steph Curry, right? Say what you want about Robbie Gould. He's got his flaws, but like he's a famous 40-year-old.
Steph Curry golf shoes today, awful.
The Under Armour ones?
Yeah.
Cool soft spikes or like
soft spikes, but they're like a mesh and they're so hard and stiff and it's uncomfortable.
I just think like, and you and I have been talking about it, it's just the Darnold, Trey Lance, like obviously the quarterback situation. When the kicker came out as long as you and I have been going to camp, and honestly, since the 49ers have really been operating, no one fucking pays attention. That changes immediately, don't you think? Like if he misses 3 of 7 field goals, that's a big story.
It is, and you just said it. We've seen it repeatedly. And look, I bet in Philly, Howie Roseman, who we've seen, I don't know, I'm sure you've noticed, but I just looked at it last night. His last 3 days, who did the Eagles draft today in the second round?
Good question.
Not counting today's second round because I did it last night. His last 3 years, first and second day picks, it's been like 4 Georgia guys, 2 Alabama guys, a La Tech guy, and 1 other major school guy. So I'm sure Howie loves the SEC, although, yeah, Howie loves the SEC. He probably looked at the kicker from Tennessee and went, he kicks in front of Neyland Stadium, 100,000 people every Saturday, right? He kicks in SEC road stadiums. Because that's what I'm thinking about Moody. He kicks in the big house. He kicks in the Big Ten, big environments. It doesn't always translate. I hope it does. His percentage, as we talked about, again, you can go watch the video. It was March 7th. Just search kickers or Jake Moody search kickers on our YouTube channel. And we did a big breakdown on all the kickers. He's like an 83% kicker in part because he was 2 of 6 or 3 of 6 from 50 plus. If you take out the 50 plus, he's a 96% kicker.
Just did recon. Eagles somehow did not have a second round pick. Their first pick in the third round, I think they traded back. So it was like it was pick 66.
Uh-huh.
Well, actually, they went back to back, 65, 66. Tyler Sheen, offensive tackle, Alabama.
Okay.
Pick 66, Sidney Brown, defensive back, Illinois. And Illinois, typically one of the shittier Power 5 teams. Weren't they one of the better defenses?
One of the best defenses. Okay, so last 3 years, first 3 rounds, unrelated to this Jake Moody thing, Howie Roseman, Alabama, Illinois, Georgia, Nebraska, Georgia, Alabama, La Tech. Anyway.
I would say this, though, with kicking a little different than some of these other positions, Aguayo, who was the most accomplished kicker at the time when he was picked, right, in the history of kicking, it's not like he went to UC Davis or Texas Tech. He played at Florida State, and it was immediately a disaster. I
remember it was on Hard Knocks too, that team that year.
I think kicking is a lot like golf or a lot like a baseball hitter. It's just so mental, and the moment it goes, like it's like the yips. I mean, it literally is the yips, right? Henry had the yips. I remember watching him. I think you can get him putting. You can get it chipping. You can get it kicking. I'm not trying to put this juju on him, but I'm just saying it is a very, like, ultimately the other players, like, they'll just play football, right? Like, ultimately, like Danny Gray or Ty Davis Price the second, like, they'll either figure it out or not, but it's not going to be like, he doesn't have the yips. Remember the kid they ended up trading to the Eagles, the running back. I couldn't think of his name the other day from Ohio State and Oklahoma.
Trey Sermon?
The reason they traded him, because they're like, this guy's not physical. We like fucking tough motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't because like he had the yips or no, it's just he's kind of soft. Right? He'd run, but it was just soft. This guy's either going to make or miss. Right?
And if he makes, we won't sweat third round. Right? Especially in this year where there's like
this was the craziest pick guy of the third round, just in terms of like what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the question. There's only 2 other kickers. I mean, I don't have the full kicker board in front of me, but when I remember what we did last time, there was like 3 kickers to consider based on what my special teams coach in college told me. Here's the 3 guys. And one of those 3 guys did not kick off. So if you go watch our old, you got to eliminate that guy. So there might have been like 2 kickers they liked. And they don't draft again until the end of the next round, right?
Well, they don't have a fourth round pick.
They don't
right?
draft again until the end. Okay, so it's John. Like, how
doesn't that have to factor in?
Of course.
Yeah. It's a little weird that
same analogy. If there's no gas station for another 100 miles and you got 50 gallons of gas left, you got to spend $9 a gallon. What?
My one question would be: they had the 3 picks, right? Well, I guess they traded up for the Penn State safety, but whatever. Pick 87 to 103. Why wouldn't they take him with the last pick? Were they worried someone was going to take him before tomorrow? Like, was one of the GMs going to sleep on it and take him really early in the 4th? Like, is that a little weird to you?
Wait, break it.
Well, they had 3 picks today. Yeah. They took him with the 2nd pick. Wouldn't you just take the kicker with the last pick?
Are those picks back to back? Or were the Raiders picking in between?
I think.
Well, or no, they sent the last one is the one the Vikings got, right? In the trade up. They traded up.
They picked Jake Moody at 30 at pick 99.
Yeah.
And then the Raiders, who obviously have a kicker, would not take him.
Right.
What? I guess it doesn't. They took the Bama. Wouldn't you just take the guy with the 3rd of the 3rd picks, or doesn't?
Why?
Not?
What's the difference? I know from talking to
it ultimately doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's a little eye-opening.
They got 2 guys they wanted at the end there. I know that for a fact because I talked to one of Latu's guys like 10 minutes ago, and he told me that John Lynch and Adam Peters told them if Latu is there, we're probably going to take him. Like, if he's there at the end of the round, we're going to take him. So they got that's what they were told ahead of time. So they wanted Latu, I know, and they obviously wanted Moody. So they got both the guys.
Well, he's got some athletic attributes of like what they look for in a second tight end. I'm not saying he's Jordan Reed, but he just feels a little bit more a twitchier version. I'm still doing a lot of recon on him. I realize I text everyone at the end of the round. The thing when a round ends, you convene as a scouting staff and redo the board. So, like, I'm texting everyone, like, Latu's deal. Well, most of these people, they're done. They're on the board with their GM. It's like, yeah, they can't text me back. So I don't know that much. As someone, I watch. I'm not kidding. I feel like I watch like 8 Alabama games. Like, I don't watch Ohio State. I don't watch Clemson. I watch a ton of Alabama.
You do watch Ohio State because there's always like an hour where they're the only team on.
No, but I mean, like, I watch the Alabama games. Like, I mean, they get a main TV. They get my attention. And even, I think it was DJ or someone, I guess this guy battled injuries. But, yeah, I mean, listen, if you're going to take a kicker, like the punter, I definitely feel better. It's a bold pick because you just got to make kicks, but from a Power 5. And the punter's probably a little easier. I'm going to get a kicker, like, he's got to be one of like the 25 schools of like, yeah, that was fucking hard, right?
And I'll say this too,
and
John,
that's not even guaranteed, right?
No.
Say what you want about Justin Tucker, Texas, I know he's an undrafted free agent, but like there was pressure on that.
And I'll say, like, the kickoff thing is great, but if you got a 51-yarder to win the NFC, like, I know Robbie Gould was going to make that kick. Is this guy making that kick?
Well, I would even pull it back. How about like week 3 at Seattle, like tie game?
Right.
I mean, before we even
Sam
get
Darnold trying to get to 3-0.
Let's face it, like they end up playing in some tight games.
They do.
So it's like Robbie came through before we even get to the playoffs because I guess the one thing that would make you feel good, right, is he played for a fucking nut job. A nut job that makes pressure and it's tight. And say this about Michigan for being a team that was a back-to-back playoff team. They didn't cruise to the playoffs. They played in some tight games. They played in big games. Points are at a premium. He's a field goal kicker coach, right? Because of the way they play. I mean, obviously they blow some people out, but it's a risk. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, no matter what you take, when you like a kicker, you take him. Like, yeah, right. I mean, most people around the league are rolling their eyes. Like, that's fucking crazy.
Right.
If he's good, who cares? But most great kickers, you don't have to draft this high.
Comment, I hated the Moody pick till I realized Gold squib kicked it one time and almost cost us a playoff game. Yeah. Latu, by the way, we can do a video on him next week. Scouts take on Latu on Monday. We'll do some stuff, but just 56 catches, 12 touchdowns. I guess he was a converted defensive end.
Latu?
Yeah, Latu. Anyway.
I will say this. The kicker thing, like, you're just a kicker, right? You come to Michigan, you come to Alabama, you come to USC, wherever you're a kicker. These other programs, like the other two guys they drafted, Penn State's been up and down how they've won games, but recruiting rankings has not been their issue, right? Say one thing about James Franklin, top 5 recruiter in the country. Like they're my buddies.
You remember watching the Rose Bowl?
The talent disparity in that game?
I was like, oh my God, I did not watch enough Penn State this year because these guys look incredible. Sorry, what you said.
But I would say, like, you don't probably watch enough Penn State most years. Like,
that's
since
what I'm
he's
saying.
been
Yeah,
there,
no, you're right.
they are stacked with NFL talent. It's like the thing with Iowa. It's like I saw someone tweet out the Iowa stats of the draft picks. Like, they don't lack for talent.
2 top 15 guys or 20 guys.
I think they had 4 top 50 guys. I mean, talent is not their issue. So
I interrupted you. You were gonna say a buddy of yours about Moody. Oh no, the Penn State. You were gonna say a buddy of yours about Penn State.
Well, yeah, he was just saying that they were always frustrated with the offense and the scoring because they're like, well, the recruiting rankings, the players we have all over the field, it's not adding up. And that's the thing with Michigan. I think Michigan and them have a lot in common. Like, they're kind of the same program. I think Jim has just been a higher level than James. And that conference, if the SEC is the best conference, it's unarguable. That conference, in terms of, say what you want, like, you can make fun of Iowa all you want. I watch a ton of just Big Ten, at minimum, like half the game. Every stadium's always packed. It's really hard, right? There's a lot of pressure in those venues, in those cities.
The players are big. It's physical.
It's a physical conference, but I'm just saying, like, even from Moody's standpoint it's an intense conference to play in, right? It's like playing basketball in the ACC or, now what baseball is in the SEC, obviously football and a lot of these big conferences. But that conference, just the venues are enormous. I would say the last 2 years for his program, they have fucking been unreal. So It's just the pressure on the guy. Now, does it
all make sense on John? He makes sense as a good kicker on paper.
Right on paper, very risky. Very risky.
It's not an on paper. No positions on paper, but it's. Remember when they drafted Wisnowski? What did Kyle say? I hope I don't have to watch special teams film again.
Well, do you think this pick was more about, like, if we like this guy, who fucking cares? Like, we're paying the guy $900,000.
Have shown that's who they are, right?
Yeah. But it's like his base salary is his base salary, whether he's a 3rd round pick or a 5th round pick. So if we like the guy, just take him now. I don't have to fucking lose sleep over. We have to give Robbie Gould $4 million to get him back. Fuck that. Take this guy. We like him. Let's go.
Yeah, you got to be right. If you're right, if you're wrong, this is a disaster pick. Especially, and again, we'll have time for this next week. But, like, on a day that I think Seattle got better and Philly got better last 2 days.
Seattle, I thought, had an incredible draft guy. I mean, their run game with those. I mean, Kenneth Walker was one of the better rookie running backs we've seen in recent memory, and. How good is this guy from UCLA? I think whenever I watched him, I was like, he's their best player.
Translates. Just physical, just fantastic. Hate that pick.
I mean, I'm pretty sure.
And they haven't had it. The number 3 receiver was in the playoffs against the Niners? It was Marquise Goodwin. They added a number 3 receiver. They're like, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't know if he's fast enough. Marquise Goodwin was their 3rd best receiver when they played the Niners in the playoffs, Seattle. So they upgraded at number 3.
Well, if I tell you this, I'm just going to call him JSN. Easier to say than his name.
I've been hearing some of that.
If I go DK Metcalf, JSN, and Lockett, and those running backs, and their offensive line, remember, they drafted 2 young tackles who are immediately good.
That's right.
And Geno clearly is very just at peace and confident with what he's doing. And defensively, that Witherspoon guy's got some LOB vibes. Like, they're just going to be better. Now, the Niners kicked their ass, right, over the aggregate of the 3 games, but
yeah.
I view Seattle as, like, if they're not a wild card team, it's a disappointment. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, especially
in the conference.
If Geno was just kind of the middle of what he was, the beginning there when he was really good, and then the back end when he wasn't as good. They're just Here's the thing: you play them last year you played them 3 times. You play them 2 times a year minimum. So there's just they can just get you, even if they're not.
Honestly,
the Niners are so much better. Yeah, but they could just get you.
Well, let's say Minnesota's worse. And the Giants overachieved. Could they be the 4th best team in the conference? Like the Eagles, the Niners, I think the Cowboys. Do you watch the clip on the Cowboys D tackle that, like, he only watched the draft with his mom? He's like, my mom did everything for me.
Oh, is that what? I didn't see the clip, but I think I saw a photo.
The Cowboys tweeted it out, like his 30 seconds of just like, who'd you watch the draft with? He's like, just me and my mom. And then him and his mom showed up, and Dan Quinn was like hugging him and kissing him like in the hallway. And it was like, yeah, the Cowboys. Listen, they were right there with the Niners last year. Dak fucked them. If Dak doesn't throw picks, like they're good. They got good coaching staff.
Yeah, they're a real team. Maybe the Rams are a little better. They were not in the mix last year. I don't know.
Yeah,
Stafford
I hear you.
Good coach. Somebody else was bad in the NFC last year who might be. Maybe the Saints are a little bit. We'll see. I don't know. I'll buy Dennis Allen does it again.
Detroit could be feisty.
Detroit could be feisty. Yeah. So, all right. God, there's a lot to talk about. It's hard. We were going to keep this at 15. It did pretty good.
Yeah, I don't see anyone here yet.
Oh, okay.
It's just
the Charbonnet pick. Oh my God, the Charbonnet pick.
The knock I heard, and whenever I watched him, I didn't really notice. Did he run a little upright?
Yeah,
that's his knock. Runs high,
but he just fucking kills people. Picks his knees up. He played at Michigan and UCLA.
When's the last time a guy pivoted faster to like, you're a fucking idiot, to like, no, I'm sorry, we were all wrong, than Pete Carroll? Because I think 2 years ago...
Have people properly apologized to Pete yet?
Well, no one ever properly apologizes. Like, we're still waiting on apologies for the last couple of years just in society. They haven't come. So you could argue, like, Pete's not getting them. But I think anyone with a brain is like, and I'm guilty of this too, everyone shit on them the last couple of years, the Russell Wilson thing. They nailed that. And they not only nailed it, they pivoted as smoothly as humanly possible. And I feel like I watch them now. Maybe I give them too much respect. They'll win 9-10 games again pretty easily. Just the infrastructure. Clearly, Pizza has proven now for 20 years, like his shit works.
He's got a high floor, right? And his ceiling is obviously high. I think his quarterback holds down this particular Geno holds down their ceiling on this team. But
I give them a lot of credit for this. Yeah, I give them a lot of credit for this. I thought they would take Jalen Carter, and I wonder if they thought like, you know what? We got something rolling. Why do we want to risk it? The Eagles are even more established, and they just said, fuck it. Let's roll. Let's roll with a guy, high character star player. Star would be strong, but stud player in Witherspoon. And they didn't mess with Jalen. I think they would have in their heyday, and they were much more kind of a Niners pick. Like, I bet the Niners, obviously they didn't spend much time with Witherspoon. But
do you think they would have, like, if Jalen Carter falls to us, we'll take him?
No, I think Witherspoon, they would have loved. Witherspoon is everything the Penn State guy is times 10.
Can he add weight, Witherspoon?
But he's just like
just a dog,
just a baller.
All right, good stuff, everybody. If Trey Lance gets traded Saturday, we'll be back. Otherwise,
it feels like a ship sailed, huh?
If Brandon Ayuk trade, we got to talk about that. Didn't happen, but
someone was like, Herbert got his option picked up today too as well.
Okay, well, then why did Brandon's heart sink when his phone rang this morning?
Yeah.
All right, we'll have a lot more to talk about. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk soon. Later.
Kickers.
Can't live with them. Can't live without them.